This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Our final Monday Night Football doubleheader of the 2024 season is on tap for today. We got the Bears at the Vikings, followed by the Falcons and the Raiders. Some playoff implications in both of those games. Today we'll break down my thoughts on the Bears and Vikings. I got a spread and a total I like in that game, plus another player prop. We'll talk about the Falcons and the Raiders too. 3 player props I like in that one to get you ready for tonight's doubleheader. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I'm a managing editor at FanDuel Research, here to break down my thoughts on both of tonight's Monday Night Football games, letting you know my top bets and player props across this Week 15 Monday night doubleheader. We'll dive into all that here in just one second, but first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. On Wednesday, we're going to break down our thoughts on the first round of the college football playoffs. Riley Thomas will join me, 4 p.m. Eastern, breaking down his thoughts on all 4 games and futures to grab and much more. Before that, we'll go game by game across week number 16, the NFL, laying out my best bets early in the week at FanDuel Sportsbook. Best bets for the NFL on Thursday, player props on Friday. So again, search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. And of course, we are now live Monday through Friday on our brand new YouTube page, talking best bets and player props over there. Go to the YouTube page, subscribe, enable notifications to get notified as we go live each and every weekday, and leave us a thumbs up if you like what you hear. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online, real money wager, only $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chattanooga, Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's begin things here by breaking down the first game of the night. That is the Bears at the Vikings. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook. Vikings favored by 7. It's a light 7 at -102. The total in this game is at 44.5. I do show value in laying the 7 with the Vikings. Again, that's a just -102 right now. My numbers are the Vikings favored by 7 or by 9.9 in this game. And that may seem like a lot. It's a divisional matchup, and they just saw each other a couple weeks ago and stuff like that. Close game there in Chicago. But this offense for the Vikings has been playing a lot better recently. Ever since TJ Hawkinson rejoined the lineup, the Vikings have been much more efficient offensively, and that's true for both their passing game and their ground game. So Hawkinson seeming to make a difference. Also, it's just Sam Darnold more comfortable with this offense. Things like that, I think, are adding up to make this Vikings offense be, I think, kind of its best version of itself. Frankly, you can't expect a lot more out of a Sam Darnold-led offense. So I think they've been playing really well. And this Bears defense has not been what it was down the stretch last year or early on this year either. They've had a lot of injuries that may have been contributing to that. Montez Sweat, I know, not at full health right now. So they rank 13th defensively for the full season based on number fire schedule adjusted metrics, but they've been playing a bit worse than that recently too. So I'm okay laying the 7 with the Vikings at -102. I think that's a quality bet for tonight and one of my favorite bets across the entire week. So we'll take it here for a single game preview as well. Vikings -7, -102. Don't mind if you want to go with the alt spread. If you go -6.5, that's -120. Now that it's at -120, whereas it was -115 earlier on this week, your expected ROI is better based on at least my numbers, based on the historical hit rates of my numbers in this range, your ROI is better on the -7, or projected ROI is better laying the -7 at -102 than it would be at 6.5. But if you don't want to push on 7, I do understand as well if you want to go with the -6.5 as well. So first bet of the night is going to be Vikings -7 at -102. I also do like the total over 44.5. That is currently -104 at FanDuel Sportsbook. I feel better about the spread than I do about the total because I'm not dependent on this Bears offense doing a lot against a Vikings defense that is pretty good, even though the Bears did do well against them in their meeting a couple weeks ago. I do like this for same game parlays. I'm not enamored with it as a straight bet, but because in most part, because it's right above a key number of 44.5. If it were 43.5, I'd be ecstatic to take the over here. Here, it's more so I'm good with it. I did take it myself, but it's more about a lean than it would be the full enthusiasm with the spread. If you look at totals in my model that have been around the same range, where I've got this one at 46.9 points, they've gone over 44.5 at a 57.6% clip. So based on that, it is a good bet. But again, I get a little bit nervous about it being around a key number. So I just like the spread more here at -7 and -102, but do like the over as well, potentially as a second leg for a same game parlay. So in this spot, we are okay with the Vikings and we're okay with the over, which means I can feel okay about some player props that are on the optimistic side of things. My favorite player prop for this game is going to be on TJ Hawkinson to score a touchdown. Hawkinson right now at FanDuel Sportsbook sitting at +210 to score. He is not in the Trey McBride range where it's hysterical that he has not had a receiving touchdown yet this year, but no touchdowns yet for Hawkinson, despite the fact he's had a pretty good role. He has a 19% target share in the games he's played. Not a lot of high leverage targets, only a 17% red zone target share, only 15% deep. Those have more so gone to Jefferson and Addison, understandably, but Hawkinson is involved. I'd expect the Vikings offense to put up points in this game, and I want to tie my tight ends to high implied team totals. I want those guys to be in the mix. Hawkinson checks both those boxes for tonight. So +210 for anytime touchdown. I think it makes a lot of sense to go towards TJ Hawkinson for tonight, and he's going to be my top player prop within this Vikings and Bears game. So again, my favorite player prop for tonight in this game, TJ Hawkinson to score +210. Didn't see a whole lot else I was really feeling as far as other props in this game. I did consider Cam Akers, over 25.5 rushing yards for him. I thought that was at least a consideration given that Aaron Jones are trying to keep him healthy. If I think the Vikings cover a 7-point spread, that probably means they're icing things out late. Maybe they get Akers more involved in order to scale back the usage on Jones. I think it's an okay bet to go Akers over 25.5. Didn't see enough to feel like amazing about it. Not sure what the Bears backfield will look like. Caleb Williams' rushing prop has come down. It was 24.5, now down to 22.5. I think that does help and make it a bit more of a consideration. But really, honestly, couldn't talk myself into anything else as far as a player prop perspective for tonight, especially with Justin Jefferson's yardage prop, 81.5. That is a monster number, understandably so, but very much up there for sure. Addison as well, 54.5, a high number. Hawkinson, 44.5. Just couldn't quite talk myself into anything else there. So let's finish things up here by talking about my top same game parlay for tonight. It's going to be the three bets we've already discussed because they all play pretty well together, where I assume the Vikings win this game, put up a lot of points, and TJ Hawkinson can help catalyze an over in this game. So a three-leg same game parlay of the Vikings -7, total over 44.5, and TJ Hawkinson +210 to score. That is +654 at FanDuel Sportsbook as of right now. Wouldn't blame me if you want to go with the 6.5 here in order to avoid that leg of the parlay voiding with a push on -7. But to me, I think this does make a lot of sense with the -7 being just -102 and correlating well with the over here. So these three bets play well together. I like all of them individually. So we'll go Vikings -7 over 44.5 and TJ Hawkinson touchdown +654 at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight's game. Let's talk about the second game, and I don't see any value in the spread or total in this one. That is between the Falcons and the Raiders. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, Falcons favored by 5.5, and the total in this game is 44.5. It was 3.5 a couple days ago. So I think that says the Max Crosby injury matters. Crosby going to be done for the year now. He's going to have some ankle surgery. So he is out. That obviously is a big key for the Raiders defense. He is their best overall player and he's now done. So that's going to downgrade the Raiders quite a bit. But also I think this may be an indication that Aiden O'Connell will not go. O'Connell didn't practice Thursday through Saturday. He was listed as questionable. They said there was at least a shot he could go. That always seemed pretty optimistic, given that he was in an air cast leaving last week's game. So I think we'll see Desmond Ridder for a revenge game here. And when I look at this game, with Ridder assumed as a starter and ruling out Max Crosby, I've got the Falcons here by 4.4 points and the total of 43.7. So I'm pretty much in line with market, a bit higher on the Raiders and a bit towards the under, but not enough to make a firm bet on either of those. So not going to touch the spread or the total in this game. What that does do for me is kind of kill a lot of enthusiasm about optimistic props because I'm lower on the Falcons offense, not exactly higher on the Raiders offense either. And when I dislike the overall game environment for both sides and I'm lower on the offense in both sides, going to be hard for me to talk about looking at a lot of overs for this game. And in fact, the first two bets that I like for the Falcons and the Raiders are both going to be unders. I'll start things off here with my favorite bet in this game across the entire game. That is Kyle Pitts, under 31.5 receiving yards at -113. The fantasy football playoffs began yesterday. If you had Kyle Pitts in your team, you probably were not involved. I am sorry to say, because I understand that pain for sure, but you can get your vengeance here by taking an under on Kyle Pitts, under 31.5 at -113. This is a number that just feels kind of high because his role has been on the decline. The snap rate for Pitts was 96% in week 1, and it's been under 60% in 4 of his past 6 games. Now, it was back up to 78% last week, and he had 6 targets there, but he still finished with just 1 reception for 14 yards. Pitts has gone under 31.5 receiving yards in 7 out of 13 games overall this year, and he's done so in 3 consecutive games and 4 of the past 5. If you're looking at Pitts earlier on this year, where he was actually showing a bit of life, getting yardage, getting touchdowns and stuff like that, it always felt to me like that yardage and that production came on primarily broken plays where there were no defenders on the entire screen. And that's always pretty fluky. It's tough to project that going forward. He's not getting those broken plays anymore, as you would expect. And with those broken plays not going his way, we've seen unders hit at a pretty decent clip for Kyle Pitts. And I think that does make sense here once again for tonight. So I like Pitts under 31.5, -113. Other reason I like Pitts unders is that if you think about this Falcons team, they need a win pretty badly, and they got to get this offense back on track. You look at the Buccaneers. They were already ahead in the standings, and then got a win when they were actually underdogs in yesterday's game against the Chargers. So the Falcons, pretty desperate for a win here, and they got to get this offense back on track. I think that means they're going to ride the ground game, both with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Algier has not been involved the past couple of weeks, in large part because they've had to play catch up for most of those games. But I think what we'll see here is kind of getting back to RIP Arthur Smith kind of offense here, where they just run the football, try to keep Kirk Cousins from making the mistakes he's been making here recently. And if they do decide to ride the ground game, which I think they can without Max Crosby and with the way this Raiders defense has played so far this year, I think that's going to set up pretty well for them to keep things controlled, keep things on the ground, and not to air things out. And if they do that, that'll lead towards an under for Pitts. So it's both because I don't like Pitts' role, but also because I think that we'll see that kind of approach, a run-centric approach to start from the Falcons for tonight. So Pitts under 31.5, my favorite prop within this game. On a similar note, again, thinking about the way I expect the Falcons to play things here, I also want to take Ray McCloud under 35.5 receiving yards. Again, commitment to the ground game. And I think that we see them kind of try to regain control that they've seemed to have lost the last couple of games. Now, McCloud has gone over this number in 3 consecutive games, and maybe fewer Pitts targets means more work for Ray McCloud. But before this 3-game stretch for McCloud, he had gone under 35.5 in 5 consecutive games. Overall, McCloud has gone under in 6 out of 13 games, but now this team should be, you would think, based on the betting odds, based on my model, leading instead of trailing. So when you look at McCloud, he's been getting there despite the fact he's had pretty minimal target volume. Last week was an exception where he had, I think, 11 targets in that game. That's not really what you would expect out of Ray McCloud when Darnell Mooney and Drake London are both fully healthy. It's possible McCloud gets there in a couple of catches because he's a guy who gets some downfield work, but I'm willing to take that risk personally. I do think that McLeod under 35.5, another fine way to go for this game again, because I think that the Falcons will lean on the ground game and get the ball back to their key cogs in Drake London and Darnell Mooney. On the Raiders side of things, I did want to check out some Sincere McCormick props. They're not posted right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. I was looking towards unders because Alexander Mattison is back in this game. Now, Antonio Pierce has already said that McCormick will still be the lead back, despite the fact that Mattison will be active for this game. So this is not a take the under no matter what. But if you see a number on McCormick that is sniffing around the production he's had recently, that's where I want to take an under. The Falcons can at times be a pretty good rush defense. They had some injuries at linebacker, some pretty key injuries at linebacker earlier on this year. Got a bit healthier there. Jesse Bates also pretty talented. So I think this rush defense can be pretty solid for the Falcons, and don't really know what the backfield split will look like with Mattison back in the fold. So I do want to take an under on McCormick once that is posted at FanDuel Sportsbook. Again, we're not taking under no matter what, but if he's projected somewhere near what he's been doing recently, that's where I think the under will be very much in play for McCormick. Again, because I'm not expecting a ton of offense in this game on either side. McCormick don't really know what the role will look like. I think the effectiveness has been a little bit fluky. Maybe the Turners have kind of turned things around, calling plays here for the Raiders, but this ground game is not very good still. So do you want to take an under on McCormick once it is posted? Again, not taking it no matter what. That's the first place I'll look on as far as Raiders props go for tonight. The one optimistic prop I am going to look at is going to be on Jacoby Myers, because Myers' role has been fantastic this year. And right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, he's only minus 106 to go over 5.5 receptions. I think that's a pretty good number given just how involved he's been in this offense. It's more about the volume for Myers than who's playing quarterback for them for tonight, because Myers has gone over 5.5 receptions in 7 out of 11 games overall this year. He's done it in 6 out of 8 games without Devontae Adams. Just a massive role. He's had double-digit targets in 3 consecutive games. He got there 2 games before that as well. And even if it is Desmond Ridder a quarterback, Ridder is not the worst quarterback on the planet. So even if Ridder starts, I still feel pretty good about targeting Jacoby Myers given the role he has had. We also just saw the Falcons bleed production to both Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. We could see a bit of that here tonight. Don't want to go to the yardage for Myers, given that I'd be banking on efficiency there. But from an overall volume perspective, Myers over 5.5 receptions minus 106. I think that does stand out in a pretty big way for tonight's game. So the only positive prop will be the Myers over 5.5 receptions at minus 106. Finishing things up here with the same game parlay. Again, we want to think about props that play well together. We can tell ourselves a story and say, okay, if this leg hits, I want to make sure the odds, these other legs hit as well. I go up. And that to me says I should go with the 2 bets that I like the most, where I'm kind of going into this narrative where the Falcons decide to reclaim control on the ground, try to pound the rock a bit and stabilize the offense, bring the blood pressure back down a little bit and try to get things back on track. That to me says I compare the Ray McLeod and Kyle Pitts unders. Again, McLeod under 35.5, Pitts under 31.5, and go with Tyler Algier over 28.5 rushing yards. Because again, they haven't used him a whole lot recently, but if they can build a lead, that to me says they'll probably be able to rest Bijan Robinson a bit for this stretch run where they basically need to win out effectively in order to win the NFC South. They can get Algier involved, and Algier's a good football player. So you could go over this number without a ton of volume as well. So it plays well with the narrative of the Falcons run the football, do so pretty effectively, get a lead, and that leads to less passing volume for McLeod and Pitts. So 3-leg same game parlay. Ray McLeod under 35.5 receiving yards, Kyle Pitts under 31.5, and Tyler Algier over 28.5. That is plus 465 at FanDuel Sportsbook for that 3-leg same game parlay, and one I do feel pretty good about for tonight. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. As mentioned, back with you once again tomorrow. We're going to go game by game across week number 16 in the NFL, breaking down my best bets for this week over at FanDuel Sportsbook. To get that as it is posted, make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast, but also check us out on our brand new YouTube page, live 10 a.m. Eastern on that YouTube page, breaking down my thoughts on week 16. Subscribe there, leave us a thumbs up, and turn on notifications over on the YouTube side of things. If you got any questions for me, I'm on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets across Monday Night Football. Enjoy the doubleheader. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down our thoughts on Week 16. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.